Recording. Yes, over to you, Esther.
Hello, welcome to the last session. So today is on wildlife corridors, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of them and also community organising at the end of it. And if you weren't in the first session, I'll just give you a brief introduction about myself and then we'll get started. So I'm the Team Wilder Community Ecologist, and I work with individuals and communities to help them enhance and create habitats in their community land or garden. Before that, I was in a different team as a project ecologist where I worked with landowners, and then I've also been part of a district council and also ecological consultancies before. So my background's in ecology and habitat creation, basically. So I'll just expand the slides. Let me know if there's a problem, because I can't see you guys, so you have to speak up. Right, so I'll just talk you through the structure of the session. We'll first look at wildlife corridors and different types, and then I'm going to get you to do an activity where you can pretend you're a different animal and see how well you can get through your existing space and see what improvements you can make. We'll discuss that activity, and then we'll go on to strategic networks and community organising. And we'll finish off with another activity where you'll be put into breakout rooms and you can discuss how you can increase your habitat connectivity in the local area through community organising. And we'll end with a 10-minute question and answer session. So start with, what is a wildlife corridor? So basically in urban areas, we've got lots of parks and green spaces, but they're all kind of isolated and fragmented in the landscape. And so what this can lead to are issues like lack of resources for some species, like water and food, and also lack of mates. And if there's a lack of mates around, then there's inbreeding and lower genetic diversity, so that's a problem. And also with climate change, species are going to want to disperse to different areas when there's extreme events like flooding or drought. And without these linkages, they can't do that. So what we can do is provide these linear corridors through the landscape. I don't know if you can see my mouse. There's some linear corridors here, and then also some stepping stones in this image, which just connects up all these core areas in this wider image too. So that can really benefit animals and support them by moving through, so they have access to food, water, mates, and lots of other resources too. So that's basically a wildlife corridor. And then examples of them. So as I said before, you can get stepping stones or linear corridors. You can get canals, rivers, and streams. So the bottom right picture here is of a ditch, and you can see lots of vegetation along this ditch with some like hazel coppices and trees. And so this is really useful for birds and mammals, bats as well, to commute through. Bats also really like rivers. So top right here, you can see a river, and there's specific bat species that rely on these habitats to commute through the landscape. Road verges. So it's a really good linear corridor. So if you don't mow the road verge, you can have some really nice wildflowers coming up, some longer grass for small mammals and amphibians and reptiles to commute through. Because without the road verges, like being this wild space, it doesn't really like benefit wildlife in any way really. So you just get these like concrete tarmacs through the landscape where wildlife can't really cross them or run alongside. Hedgerows are great in rural landscapes as well as urban landscapes, but in rural landscapes you have these like expansive arable fields, and most wildlife doesn't like to cross open areas just because there's less shelter available for if like they're predated on. So bats really love hedgerows. They can commute across the hedgerows into different habitats like woodlands, and then also small mammals as well, amphibians and reptiles. They all really, it's really good for them. And then also if you have like a margin next to the hedgerows of longer grass, and that's really good for like invertebrates, which can then have a knock-on effect for bats. Ponds are a nice stepping stone through the landscape. So great crested newts I think I mentioned in the first session, can disperse for up to 500 metres. So if you have ponds within 500 metres of each other through the area, then that's a really good stepping stone corridor for them. So if you've got some ponds nearby in a local park, or you know your neighbours have ponds, you might want to add one yourself to just add that little stone in for them. Flower pots. So you don't normally think of flower pots being a part of a wildlife corridor, but they are. So even if you've got like a tiny patio outside like me, you can just add some flower pots to the area, and it can join on with like the neighbours' gardens as well, and be really good for pollinators. Wildflower meadows, I spoke a lot about in the first session. It's really good for like all sorts of species, and can really connect up kind of like arable areas as well in the rural setting. Tree lines and woodlands. So you might notice lots of tree lined avenues in the city, which are good corridors for bats and birds. And some trees, if you want to plant them in your garden, that are good for wildlife, are fruit trees. So crabapple, birds feed on the fruit, and also you see those amazing flowers that come out, and they attract the bees as well. You can have rowan in your garden, and this also have berries and flowers for birds and invertebrates. Holly provides shelter through the winter and provides berries as well. And then there's also birch, which invertebrates and birds love. So there's a whole range of like native trees that you could get your hands on and just put them in your garden to allow either like a stepping stone for them from like another garden, or you could have a linear row of trees as well. Hedgehog holes. So, I skipped one. Climber plants. So people don't really think of vertical spaces as being a corridor, but it is. So you've got like all those bare walls and fences that just aren't used. And if you have climber plants going up them, you can really help small mammals and invertebrates and also birds which nest in them. So climbers include honeysuckle, ivy, climbing rose, hops, passion flower, or jasmine. And then lastly, hedgehog holes. So they are really great at connecting up neighbours' gardens. So you might want to identify a route through your neighbourhood where there's lots of fences in the way, and kind of talk to your neighbours and all get a little hedgehog hole cut through the fence. That links to the community organising at the end of this session, so I'll talk about it then. But yeah, hedgehog holes are generally 13 by 13 centimetres. So they allow hedgehogs in and small mammals, but they don't allow your dogs or pets out. So that's a good little feature. So this slide, I'm just going to quickly go through kind of which habitat corridors are like benefit different species really. So for amphibians and reptiles, ponds are really great with longer grass surrounding them, like on the edges, and then nearby you want to have some bushes or scrub or hedgerows, just so you have that like shelter for them to retreat to if there's a predator, and also just act as another resource really. Bats, like I said, love hedgerows, field margins, rivers and woodlands. Garden birds, they're the same. They like to forage or maybe like the grass in your garden, but always have somewhere close by to retreat to. So trees, bushes and hedgerows are good. And so if you join these up with your neighbours, they can kind of just like, use them and fly along. Hedgehogs, again, long grass and brush material. So brush material is twigs or piled up or dead wood, bushes, hedgerows, hedgehog highways. So if you and your neighbours all have these elements and you know that there's hedgehogs in the area, then you'd really benefit their dispersal. And now on to activity 1. So in this one, it's a bit of a weird one. You'll pretend you're a different animal for every 5 minutes of this activity. So the activity is 20 minutes. So maybe just pick out some species, and I've given you some examples here. So we've got a slow worm, you've got a garden bird like a blue-tit, you've got a hedgehog, a frog or a toad or some other amphibian, or great-crested newts. And just have a think about how would you get from one end of your garden or land to the other? What features are helping you move through your garden? Are there any obstacles in the way? and could you create any features to better help you move around your garden. So we'll have 20 minutes and then we'll tie this in with a 5-minute break, I think. And so that leads to 7:05. We will get back here, then we can discuss what you found for 5 minutes. So maybe just make a few notes and you can base it on the slides that we had before as well. I'm gonna just exit that so I can see you.
Esther, can we see what those species need again?
Yes. Go back. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Oh.
Yeah, it's working now.
Cool.
Okay, I might take a picture of that. So we've got to, so we do 5 minutes pretending we're an amphibian, 5 minutes pretending we're a bat, 5 minutes pretending we're a bird, and 5 minutes on hedgehog, something like that.
Yeah, that's just an example. So you can just choose what species you want to be, and just spend a bit of time. You don't have to be 5 minutes on each. Just to give you an idea of spending a bit of time thinking about each animal and knowing like what you have already in your garden and what you could do to benefit them more.
Can I just, sorry, Esther, can I see the questions on the next slide? Just because I didn't make a note, I thought they were staying on the screen, sorry.
Do you think it would be helpful for people to go out into their gardens?
Yeah, you can. You can use this 20 minutes how you want. So, and then we'll come back at 7:05 and discuss what you found for 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go to my garden, I think. Although, if anybody asked, can you let people in, Esther, if they...
Yeah, I'll be...
No. Okay.
So, elderly cat walking towards them. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else I need to do for the magpies.
Nice. Anyone else? One other person?
We've got some good messages in the chat.
Yeah.
Somebody says, I have a lot of hedges and long grass. I'm thinking of having climbing plants as a wall feels a little naked at the moment. And then Suzanne said, I have a piece of piping that I put under the fence for the hedgehog to come through. And I have a hedgehog in my garden.
Yay.
I have a vine on one fence and a honeysuckle on the other with trees for the birds. My garden's already quite well, but I need to add more water. Yeah, that was the conclusion I came to. Water is a feature that I need to help them move through.
Yeah, I think water's key. That will really attract even like dragonflies and everything else to your garden as well. And bats. Great. Okay. Shall we carry on?
Did anyone come up with any more features that could be created or think of any obstacles that were in their garden?
I was just going to share this, like I wrote something on all of them, so I won't go into all of it, but something I did notice that I've observed is I'm not lucky enough to have any of the things you mentioned in my garden apart from birds, but I do seem to attract, I quite often get foxes, which I love, but obviously puts some other species off. And the only thing I did notice was when I was thinking about moving around my garden currently, because I did know May, it's like the flipping Jungle Book out there, you know, it's crazy. So currently, I think is probably lush for some animal. There's probably some stuff out there I don't even know. But what I noticed is the birds don't like it because I get a lot of cats. The long grass obviously attracts the little prowling cat. So it's sort of like, I think is attracting some things and then it's a deterrent for others. So I was also trying to think of the bushes. I've got really, really tall bushes that I purposely don't cut down so that I notice the birds hiding in it. But I do need to think more about the corridors, like connecting it up from the bird bath to the bird feeders, to the, you know, because they've got quite a long way to go where a cat could get them, especially like a ground feeding bird, like a robin. They're very exposed with the long grass, so that doesn't work for birds. So
that's interesting. That's good to know. Yeah, so maybe you could have some like shorter grass, like within the longer grass, or I don't know. That might still be a bit of an issue with cats. Tricky. Okay, great. Let's move on to. Are my slides still sharing? Yes. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to put that effect in. So I just thought it would be useful to talk briefly on strategic networks, because if you're applying for a community like grant or something like that, then it might be useful to know if your land like sits within these corridors, these network corridors, because that could give you kind of like points with the people that are assessing your application. So just to make you aware of the Nature Recovery Network, you can find this on the West of England website. I'll send you a link in the chat. And basically they've put together a little model to show the existing habitat patches. So you've got these darker green areas, which is the woodland, and then the lighter areas, so the lighter green is where woodland could be created to kind of enhance the corridors in the area. So you can see these really nice corridors through the landscapes. This is Avon here, and it's basically around the principles. It's called the Lawton principles, which is bigger, better, more, and joined up. So you want bigger green spaces, you want them higher quality, you want there to be more in the landscape, and for them to be joined up, so have these corridors that we're talking about between them. And then also Beelines is a project run by Buglife, and they've kind of mapped out all the corridors in the UK where it will be beneficial to create pollinator habitat. So you can see the red lines going all the way around Bristol basically. So you can have a look at these maps. You can zoom in and have a look at your area where you live and see if it sits within these corridors. And if it does, if your like future project that you're proposing with your community does sit within a corridor, then it's worth mentioning in a bid, because it will get you a bit more noticed. Right, so that's that. You can ask questions later on about that. I'll just go on to community organising because it kind of leads smoothly on. So basically community organising is a really good way of working with your local residents to bring people together and to benefit people and wildlife. So it can seem a bit like daunting at first to put together a community group, a bit overwhelming, there's so much to do and think about. So I just put together a few pointers for you. So you could start by door knocking to meet your local neighbours and people in your neighbourhood, and you want to look out for some natural leaders while talking to them. If this is a bit uncomfortable for you, I know it is for some people, then you can use social media. So there's lots of Facebook groups out there, or Nextdoor app, sorry, and that kind of connects you with your neighbours around you, and you can get talking that way. And then what you want to think about is the assets that already exist in your area. So some people in your community might have different skills. So some might be more kind of like people facing. They could be like extroverts that enjoy talking to people and finding out and connecting others. And then others might want to be more on like the finance side of it, or do some plant ID or something like that. So you want a mixture of skills and knowledge. And then you also want to look at kind of the organisations in your area too. So there might be some schools or parks or community organisations, or like faith organisations or local businesses that you can kind of connect up with. They might already have stuff going on in the area that you can develop, or they might just be a nice little resource for you to know about. And yes, just take your time. This can be quite a slow process, and it can be a bit discouraging sometimes, but like all the little wins can become like more visible over time, and more people want to join the group. So yeah, just stay positive. And make sure you make it accessible for everyone. You might want to host some online events and also some in-person events, which can be recorded. So just make sure you're aware of that. And then maybe as a group, you can come up with a few different like visions for the area to get an understanding of what you're aiming towards, basically. And then lastly, how can you build on what is already available, what you've done before? Because it's a lot easier to develop on an idea than start from scratch. So this is a good thing to look at. It's the National Academy of Community Organising. They've put together a community organiser guide for you. And it basically like lists all the questions that would be useful for you to talk about with your community, to find out like about the skills that I was talking about and all of that. So I've just got example questions here. So these are, what are the good things about the community? What makes you feel happy, proud, or hopeful? What are your concerns? What ideas have you got for how things could change? What's stopping change? What's the first step you could take to make your idea happen? Do you know anyone else who I should speak to? And then also you could say, I'm just going to speak to your neighbour. Do you want to come? So you're kind of like connecting the community in that way. These are just like a few examples. It's quite a big document and it goes through and lists kind of different scenarios for you and really helps you out. So that's a good one to have. I'll put a link in there too, or I'll send Steph a link and she can email you. Then I've got 2 case study examples because it can be a bit overwhelming. And so just having examples in your mind can help you to kind of figure out what you want to do and how. So this is Blooming Whiteway. It's a group in Bath. And basically they had a front garden competition where they were all encouraged to make their streets greener. And it started in 2017. And each year the participants just kept growing and it was really popular. And then a lot of them had free plants outside their driveways as well, which they would kind of share between each other. And then they changed their name because they became so popular to Gardens Alive. And you can see they've got some signage here, which they put next to all their wild areas. And this other picture is of all the plants that they're offering. And then you can see the Team Wilder website, and it's got a load of different resources, which kind of lists each case study one by one, and it has a lot more information on this case study if you're interested. But the website also has some advice for people that also want to like create a community group. And the advice that Blooming Whiteway gave were talk to people, deliver leaflets, have signage up like this one, hold regular meetings to stay in contact and connect, go to local events, and also network to each other. So over time, like all of this could really improve the popularity of the group and you become like really strong. The next case study is St George in Bloom, BS5. So in 2004, the Kensington Road Residents Association was formed, and they formed a group where they made sure they received funding, and they created a constitution, and they also opened a street bank account. And a guy called Grenville and his partner, they've got like quite a small garden, and they've kind of created habitat for wildlife in every nook and cranny possible. So they've planned out how to maximise their garden for wildlife and people. And so this turned out to inspire a lot of the streets really. And so all the neighbours have gone on to do similar things, and now they've got a really nice corridor linking all the different front gardens down the street. So they've got trees and plants outside their houses. The nearby park has got a rewilded area near the entrance, and they've got lots of patches, like green spaces nearby, which they've enhanced. And they've even got this like mural down the street, which is really nice, I think. Yes. I just want to point you to the Team Wilder page, which I've mentioned quite a lot. But basically there's a resources page where it tells you how to create a group, what advice is given from all these different case studies. It's got the different kind of groups, so I get a bit overwhelmed by all the kinds of groups out there and all the acronyms, but it's got a good list and explanation for each one. And then there's a page on all the funding opportunities really and all the providers. So you can have a search through there and see if any of them are relevant for you and if you want to apply for them. So this activity, we're going to have you into breakout rooms, and you're going to look at how you can increase your habitat connectivity in your local area through community organising. So you might want to think about what we've gone through in this session, but then also use your knowledge from the last 7 weeks and think of how you can create corridors in your community, like working with others, and how you'd go about it, what you could do to kind of get some quick wins, and what your long-term vision would be. So let me just escape that. Okay, I don't know how you do the breakout room, so Steph can do that. Are there any questions before we do it? Nope.
Is it based on our own area where we live now, or is it more hypothetical, would you say?
I was thinking more about where you live now.
Yeah, thanks.
Kind of the vision of your community.
Yeah, try and imagine like if you were actually going to do it, like if you're actually going to walk out of your front door right now and go and talk to your neighbours, like what would you talk about? What would you suggest?
Yeah, thank you.
What would your plan be? I'm going to do it too, actually, because I really need to do this where I live. But it's daunting, isn't it?
If you want to take photos of the previous slides, because I don't know if I can get them up in the breakout room. But yeah, if you want to take a photo of this.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll create the break rooms now. Yeah, can't wait to
get back together. Yeah, we'll get back together at 22:08.
Oh, that's quite long. Should we just?
That was it. Okay.
Should we just do till past?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. See you soon, guys. We can always finish soon, Esther. If we finish too soon, we can always finish early. I don't know if you want to go in any. Whether you want to stay here, Esther.
That?
I can assign you a room if you want, or shall we just wait and hear what people say when they come back?
Oh, we're in the room already. Okay. No, we can be in the same room. Where can we access the beelines map? Sorry, I was reading the question at the same time as you talking.
That's all right.
Okay, this our group. Cool. So
No, I don't think we're in a group. I think we're just still in the main bit.
Oh, well, how do we get out of it?
You don't need to do anything.
Oh, right, okay.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope that we just, me and Esther were just talking and we were thinking how wonderful it would be if some of you realised that you live near each other and that you could do a project together and it would be way less scary. But yeah.
Did anyone find that? Anyone with the same postcode or anything? Okay, maybe
No.
not.
I bet if everyone was actually here, like everyone who signed up to the course, I bet there must be some crossover.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were just, there's, the Blooming White Way project that Esther talked about. Well, I know those ladies and they're very inspiring, and I was just thinking, God, I wish I lived on their street. And then I realized, no, I just need to be like them. I can't wait for someone else to do that sort of thing. You have to actually be the people who you find really inspiring. You have to be that person. So that's my realization of the night. And you probably do know more than you think, like especially after doing this course, you probably do have like lots of knowledge that people would be really interested in. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. Go ahead, Esther.
Yeah, so did you think of like a vision of what you wanted to see in your area? Do you have something in mind? kind of like a project or something that you'd be keen to do? Lots of BS4. Or is there anything in the area that you think you could build on? Like, is an organisation carrying out a project already that you could kind of help them develop, or like strengthen?
I must admit, I went for a walk today, and there is a community garden. I've sort of followed their progress, literally, but like a stone's throw. I just go through like a little lane, and it's ran by the church, which, I'll be honest, cut me off a little bit because I was like, I don't know if I'll fit in, I might burn. But anyway, that aside, I was like looking at it, and it looks really good, and it was like flourishing today. And I noticed that they've got like lots of community events on, so it's on a Wednesday night. So I thought, when this finishes tonight, I'm going to be really brave and go next week, because I think you know, they're on my doorstep, so I might learn some stuff, make some friends. You never know who can help you in your own garden. So fair play to them. They're like really took something that was just like a park that's not very nice, you know, it's a bit run down, and they've created this beautiful thing where they're growing veg and doing like wild women circles and all these different things kids like planting, you know. So I might get involved with that, I think, as a bit of a scary start, you know.
Yeah,
That sounds fantastic. You should definitely do that. They'd be very lucky to have you.
Yeah, then you might meet some people and start a little like side group or something as well. Yeah, add something else to the project. That would be great.
Could I mention something else that's happening that I know about that you might be interested in as a group? I did some volunteering the other week at the food bank by Hallfield Common, and the Gardeners World are going to come and film there in July, and it's going to be on, obviously, on Gardeners World. And what it is, it's the Blaze Nursery growing the seeds, wild seeds, then brought on by a voluntary group at Hallfield Common. And then the plants will then, you know, vegetable plants will then be used by this food bank charity called Family Food Action, which are then cooked by all these groups like after school clubs. So they're going to show the whole kind of cycle, which would be quite interesting to see on TV, how they portray that.
Where did you say that was again?
It's going to be on Gardeners World, but it's at Hallfield Common, so it's to do with Family Food Action, which is this sort of grassroots food bank charity that supports a lot of after-school clubs in underprivileged bits of Bristol. And it's a weekly thing where people donate food. It gets organised, it gets sorted at the depot there, right near the cafe.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Will you get to meet Monty Don?
I'm on holiday that week, but I don't think they know who's going from Gardeners World, but I'm sure there'll be lots of excited women booking up to volunteer to meet Monty.
Definitely.
That's a great example of a project. And then we've also got Sophie, who works with Team Wilder, and she kind of visits different groups and makes case studies like the ones I showed you. So yeah, I think she'll be really keen to get one on that.
Did anyone else have any more thoughts on how they'd approach this kind of thing in their area, in their street?
If you do door knocking or social media, or how you would start it.
Or you can even talk about the barriers, because I find that's the first thing I come to, the barriers. We could maybe talk those through and come up with a plan together.
Yeah, we've got a cul-de-sac with 30 houses in, and we're on a WhatsApp group with another 2 cul-de-sacs with 30 houses about in each. So we've got almost 100 houses, and we have been very community minded for some years now. So during lockdown, for example, I asked if someone could go and pick up my meds, and somebody offered within 2 seconds, and we became quite friendly. She's gone now, but I mean, I could, when I'm ready, put something out on the WhatsApp group, and it would go to people in those 3 streets.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so it's just using what we've got already. That's in BS6, just off Ashley Hill. Yeah, but at the moment I'm concentrating on, I've bought a bird box and I just need to work out where to put it. And it's a blue tip box. And also I want a pond. I'm going to put a pond in this summer. So I think I'll wait until I've done those two things and then see about hedgehog runs and things.
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
what you think you'd say then? Just go in with the hedgehog highway sort of route, or what would be your opening statement in the group, do you think?
Well, I think everyone's quite doing what they can anyway to encourage wildlife. So we're all much of a muchness anyway, and it wouldn't be difficult. I think there's a gardening group actually as a subgroup of this, so that might be a place to start if that's group still going. But yeah, I mean, I could start by talking about a hedgehog corridor or something.
Yeah.
But my back garden is about 6 foot higher than my next door's garden, and I've been trying to sort of imagine how you could get hedgehogs to go up from 6 foot, how we'd managed to do that.
My garden's a bit like that too, Jude. And me and Esther were just talking about it. She said that she's seen someone who's built like a ramp,
Yeah,
the hedgehog highway hole. Maybe you could do that and then send a photo of that to the WhatsApp group, like, by the way, look what I'm doing.
so it would have to be covered over so they didn't fall off halfway up.
No, it was it's just a ramp like on the edge of a wall. I can't show you. But yeah, it's kind of sticking out of a wall. So it's not,
I see what you mean.
yeah. It's quite a good idea, I think.
And they would go up there, do you think, if it wasn't too much of an incline?
Should work. No, it's quite gradual. So if you just make sure if your 6 foot drop, that is, you've got a gradual like gradient, then it should be okay.
That's a good idea, yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I think talking to the people in the cul-de-sacs can really like get you into, maybe like you said, there was a gardening group going on, so it'll get you into knowing about each group in the local area, and you can maybe join forces or something. Yeah. Good.
Someone's written in the group, there's always a risk of backlash. Some people don't agree with rewilding and are quite loud about it. And Amy's put, yes, this has been my experience, sadly. Feels quite lonely and overwhelming, but that might be my lack of knowledge and confidence possibly. But yeah, I totally feel that as well. I'm really scared of making enemies on my street because that would make life really stressful, wouldn't it? But I'm imagining that the thing that Esther was talking about, this community organising resources, would probably give you strategies to deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it has quite open questions, so it's not like you're getting your opinion across straight away. You're kind of asking what they think of the area, kind of openly, so it doesn't seem like you're like all for the weeds or anything straight away.
Yeah,
can I just quickly share? Oh, sorry, go on, Steph.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, like, I put something on Nextdoor in response to someone who was saying about foxes, and I was really trying to put myself with empathy in their shoes, that they might have been frightened. So I tried to really like say something that wasn't like I put a lot into it, and someone like completely took me out on a really personal level and like was like, I won't even bore you a bit, but it was brutal what they wrote, to the point where someone replied and was like, whoa, and then like fox died in my street and I just couldn't leave it there. I know it sounds silly because it was dead, but it was when it was snowing, so I went and picked it up and like called the council and got it sorted and stuff, and people looked at me like I was mental. Like I felt just really like shamed for giving a shit, like, so like I think that's put me off, because I want to have a community and I want to help nature, but I feel quite alone in it all, if I'm honest, because my experience has been quite negative. So yeah, just being honest.
You could put like an open call out for people to come and meet you in an area during the day and in an open area. So you're like automatically filtering out the people who aren't interested, so it's not cold knocking, like let's do some, let's help nature in our area meet here at 2 o'clock on Sunday sort of thing.
Yeah, and I even tried to do that with a litter pick. So I put my own post on next door and was like, I'd like to do a litter pick. We could get a coffee. Like, I'd like to build a community thing. And then again, someone replied and was like, oh, there's no need for this. This goes on somewhere. I just completely took me out. I was like, oh, I got enough to do in my own garden. But I just thought I'd be honest that there are a lot of obstacles, and I think it depends where you live and how. I come from BS3, which is very different to where I now live. It feels quite hard to find, there's a big community here that care, and then there's a big community that really doesn't, so it's like.
Well, as I think that links on to Wildlife Champions, which is a program that Team Wilder are running. And it's basically finding a wildlife champion from each postcode in Bristol or in the Avon area. And that will be like a person who will be like the voice for the postcode, but they're trying to find like people that are good listeners, kind of listen to everyone's ideas and take them on board, and then kind of work with that, and then they can feed back to us what the community wants. So they're kind of the voice of the community. So at the moment we're like developing that program, and you can submit like an expression of interest type thing if you're interested in being a wildlife champion. So I can link you to that. And basically, we don't really want everyone's voice to be drowned out by like one dominating figure, really. So that's the website in case you want to like send in your expression of interest, and then we'll get back to you and invite you to workshops in the future. So the workshops can be on like anything that the community wants. So if they want to learn more about community organizing or like wildlife ponds and stuff, then I can just like direct workshops towards that. So that might be helpful, the links in the chats.
Yeah, I think there over 60 people joined this course, so there are people out there all over Bristol who are really interested in this stuff. So I think they are out there, Amy. Don't lose hope. You'll find your people. And the Team Wilder movement is all about that, about growing. And if you look on the map on the Team Wilder website, you'll see these actions people are taking, and it's really taking off, and it's growing all the time. And
and you can find in your community like what projects have been going on by just looking at that map. I'll put that page in as well. Where is it?
Yeah, is there anything else anyone wanted to share about that sort of community organising, like positive experiences and ways they've tackled like the fear of approaching people who might not have the same vision?
I've got a little bit of experience with this because I've set up a friends of group for 2 different parks, and then we linked in with Bristol City Council, and we were linking in with your park, and then I was basically just contacting everybody and anybody that was related to parks, that was using the park that I already knew. And then, sorry, my dog's itching a little here in the background, so if there's some rattling, that'll be that. And then as well as that, I was looking for other places that were already doing stuff. So I spent about 2 years before doing this, just like volunteering at lots of different places to get in a bit of experience to see how they did stuff, and meeting other people like that were interested. And then whilst I was doing that, I set up during lockdown, I also set up a, originally came out of like a dog walking app. So I basically was walking my dog to socialize her with other dogs, and then realized there was lots of people that had friendly dogs that all wanted to allow them to meet. And then we started talking, and that was in the park. And then I set a WhatsApp group up so that everybody could communicate. And then that slowly snowballed. And basically there's now like a community development program beginning to take shape for the area.
Wow.
Nice.
And that was linking in with literally everybody. So that was linking in with youth groups, local schools, and some of them, I would say the best advice I can give is don't be disheartened. It is really slow. It can be really difficult to get people involved, but if there are people that want to be involved, as soon as you find them, you'll know, because they'll just start sort of giving information, and the more you can keep consistent with including people and being as open as you can, so getting them to give you their ideas. We set up questionnaires and stuff like that to try and get people involved, so it wasn't just a case of one person saying we should do this with the park or we should do that. It was more a case of just asking lots of questions to people so that you can get their opinion on stuff, and then you can formulate that together and make some kind of community plan between you, and then again just ask them lots of questions.
Nice. Would you be happy to answer questions through emails as well if you?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on it by any means, but I can
sounds like
help.
You're far on. Yeah.
Really positive experience. It sounds like you've had.
Yeah.
But sheer,
really good.
You like sheer determination, I think, more than anything.
It took a little while. Like, this was from the first lockdown, from about the first few weeks in lockdown till now, and I reckon I've probably got about 20 or 30 people on email that I email when I'm doing a litter pick in the park, which I pretty much do once a month. And then there's about 20 or 30 people in a WhatsApp group. And then I've set up a Facebook page as well. It's not completely all formulated or perfect by any means yet. But yeah, I was linking in with like youth workers and outreach teams to link in to some of the younger audience so that we were trying to get different demographics.
Yeah.
I spoke to like old people's homes that were in the area, and literally anyone that walked through the park, like who seemed friendly enough to talk. Don't know which ones want to talk to you or willing to talk, just by whether they sort of like avoid looking at you and that sort of stuff and their body language. Like, yeah. So
yeah, let's hijack the COVID WhatsApp groups.
Yeah, pretty much.
We've got to spin that COVID year into something good.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for sharing, Luke.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. So the last 10 minutes, that can just be like for general questions. So whatever we spoke about in this session, but then also if you just have, questions other than what we spoke about, and then that's fine too.
How long will the recordings be available for? Good question, Suzanne. So I've done it a bit differently this time, where they've recorded straight onto Zoom Cloud. So I don't know is the answer. I think indefinitely. I think they'll be there until that Zoom account, until someone deletes them. But yeah, I think, don't worry about that. I could be wrong.
Steph, could I ask a question? Grow Wilder, is that the right name? The one in Frenchay?
Yes.
Like, I've heard some really good things about it on this course, but I don't really know the basics. Like, is it something you just turn up to as a member of the public? Is it what is it exactly? Is it an educational site, or is it more like a commercial site with an educational element to it? I haven't really got my head around what it is.
Yeah, so it's changed a lot over the years. Actually, since COVID, it's become more of a wildflower nursery.
Yeah.
So you can go any day to buy plants at the nursery. There's a little doorbell you can ring. But they also do host a lot of courses and learning events.
Yeah.
People even get married there. So, but probably my best advice would be to go on the first Saturday of the month when the market's on, and then you get a really good feel for it and the vibe. But yeah, there's like little kids go there to do wildlife watch and things like that. Yeah, I think to explain more, it started as like a demonstration site for best practice for how to do wildlife friendly food growing.
Yeah.
And it's just expanded into, and lots of different people use the site now. But I was there today and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's so inspiring. Wildflowers absolutely everywhere. So yeah, go now and you'll really enjoy it, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys, before we wrap up this course? There's a cafe. Yeah, there's a cafe. Saturdays. It's kind of seasonal though, the cafe, but it is the season now where it's open. But we close the cafe in winter for obvious reasons. It's just not that busy.
It's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you to the Avon Wildlife Trust for the whole 8 programmes. I've missed one, but I think I can go back and catch up on that. But I just found it really inspiring and yeah, full of tons of information, which I can look at over the next few years. So thank you very much indeed for doing it.
Thank you so much for coming. It would have been really rubbish if no one came.
No one had come.
Do you think you'll run it again, Steph? Because I had a couple of friends who would have booked on if they could have made it.
It's all fund independent. So this one's funded by WECA, if you know what that is, the West of England. What is it?
Don't know what the
Conservation
Conservation area. Let's hope they don't watch this. So yeah, I've given the feedback to my colleagues that it was really popular and it sold out really fast, and we should do more things like this, but we should do them more a bit earlier in the year when it's a bit cold and people don't want to be outside in the sun. But yeah, I'm going to send a feedback form, so just complete that and hopefully that can be used then as evidence that we should do more of these things.
Yeah.
You have got a question, Ed?
Oh, hi, yes. Well, it's been great, the course. My attendance has been a bit patchy, actually, but I've had a bit of trouble with the Zoom. But I do, well, I'll be able to catch up with the bits I've missed, I'm sure. But all the bits I've seen have been brilliant. Really, really informative, really well presented. So
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's been really nice to see your faces every week. Thank you, guys.
And there was a request that all of the people that are hosting to put their emails into, just to send the emails out.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I could do that for most of them. I might have to check with some of the external hosts. Yeah, I think that's all the questions, isn't it? Yeah. All right then.
I've just put in a link to the service that I run. I spoke about it in session 1, but yeah, if you need any help with habitat creation or advice, then you can just book a little meeting with me if you want. Yes, I think that's all. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Nope.
Nice.
Okay. Bye everyone. Thank you. Good luck. You
bye.
Can
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.